The morning light filtered through the slatted blinds, casting pale stripes across the floor of Amira's bedroom. Dust motes floated in the air, suspended like tiny stars in the quiet. The room was still, save for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the distant sound of a rooster crowing somewhere in the neighborhood. Lagos was waking up, but Amira remained motionless, standing in front of the mirror. Her fingers grazed the edge of her collarbone. It jutted out like a ridge beneath her skin, sharp, delicate, almost architectural. She tilted her head slightly, watching how the light caught the angles of her body. Her eyes traveled downward, tracing the narrow slope of her waist, the flatness of her hips, the absence of curves where she had longed for softness. She had always been slender, but not in the way that magazines celebrated. Her body didn't evoke elegance or grace, it was simply thin. Her shoulders were narrow, her chest modest, her hips barely flared. She looked like a sketch left unfinished, a silhouette missing its shading. Her classmates had started calling her broomstick in secondary school. At first, she laughed along, pretending it didn't sting. But the laughter faded, and the nickname stuck. It followed her through corridors, echoed in whispers, and etched itself into her self-image. Even now, years later, the word clung to her like static. At home, her mother would say, "You're beautiful in your own way," but the words felt hollow. They were spoken with love, yes, but also with resignation. As though beauty was something Amira had to redefine for herself because the world refused to offer her its standard version. Her older sister, Zainab, was curvy, radiant, and always surrounded by admirers. Zainab had a way of walking into a room and making it hers. Her laughter was loud and infectious, her presence magnetic. Boys gravitated toward her, girls envied her, and adults praised her confidence. Amira, on the other hand, felt like wallpaper, present, but unnoticed. She remembered one afternoon when Zainab had come home from university with a new hairstyle, long braids that cascaded down her back like a waterfall. Their mother had clapped her hands in delight, calling her "my queen." Amira had smiled, but later that night, she stood in front of the mirror, tugging at her own hair, wondering what it would take to be seen as regal. It wasn't jealousy. Amira loved her sister deeply. But there was a quiet ache inside her, a yearning to be admired, to be desired, to be chosen. She turned away from the mirror and sat on the edge of her bed. Her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from her friend Ifeoma. "Girl, you saw that influencer's new body. Mad oh." Amira opened the link. It was a before and after photo of a woman who had undergone a body enhancement procedure. The transformation was dramatic, hips fuller, waist snatched, breast lifted. The caption read, "Finally living in the body I deserve." Amira stared at the image for a long time. She wasn't naive. She knew the risks, the costs, the recovery. But she also knew the feeling of being invisible. Of walking into a room and watching eyes slide past her. Of being the friend, never the crush. The listener, never the muse. She opened Instagram and scrolled through her feed. Influencers, models, actresses, all with bodies sculpted to perfection. The algorithm fed her images of beauty that felt increasingly unattainable. And yet, increasingly tempting. She closed the app and lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The fan spun lazily above her, its blade slicing through the air like thoughts she couldn't quiet. That night, she dreamed of walking through a crowd. People turned to look at her, their eyes wide with admiration. She wore a fitted dress that hugged curves she didn't yet possess. Her hair flowed like silk, her skin glowed, and her smile was effortless. In the dream, she was seen. She was wanted. She woke with a start, the dream lingering like perfume. The room was dark, but her mind was alight. She sat up, reached for her laptop, and typed, "Body Enhancement Clinics in Lagos." The search results appeared instantly. Names of clinics, testimonials, procedures. She clicked through them, reading every word, absorbing every image. Liposuction. Fat transfer. hip fillers, breast augmentation. The language was clinical, but the message was clear: you can become what they desire. She wasn't impulsive. She had thought about this for years. But something had shifted. The ache had grown louder, the yearning more insistent. She wanted to rewrite her story. To step into a version of herself that felt powerful, magnetic, whole. She bookmarked 3 clinics and closed the laptop. Her heart thudded softly in her chest, not from fear, but from anticipation. The next morning, she called the first clinic. She woke with a start, the dream lingering like perfume. The room was dark, but her mind was alight. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from something more electric. Forward in glittering strides, heels clicking across marble floors, champagne flutes raised in celebration, hashtags announcing engagements, weddings, baby showers. Amira watched it all unfold from the sidelines, her phone a window into lives that seemed to bloom while hers remained dormant. Ifeoma got engaged in April. The ring was modest but radiant, and her smile in the photo was even brighter. He asked, and I said yes, the caption read, followed by a cascade of heart emojis. Amira stared at it for a long time, her thumb hovering over the like button before she finally tapped it. Then came the bridal shower. The group photo showed Ifeoma surrounded by friends in matching satin robes, their laughter frozen in time. Amira had been invited, but she declined. She told herself she was busy. The truth was harder, she didn't know how to show up without feeling like a shadow. Her other friends followed suit. Chika moved in with her boyfriend. Tolu posted a maternity shoot. Even Zainab had started talking about a man she met at a conference, someone who made her laugh, who called her sunshine. Amira smiled through it all. She congratulated, commented, even helped plan a few events. But inside, something was unraveling. The wedding was in August. It was held in a grand hall draped in white and gold, with chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Amira wore a fitted emerald dress and gold earrings. She had spent hours getting ready, hoping to feel beautiful, hoping to feel something. She arrived alone. The hall was already buzzing, couples holding hands, friends laughing, photographers darting between tables. Amira found her seat near the back, beside an aunt who barely remembered her name. The ceremony was beautiful. Ifeoma walked down the aisle like a dream, her veil trailing behind her, her eyes locked on the man waiting at the altar. Amira clapped, smiled, even wiped away a tear. But it wasn't joy. It was longing. During the reception, the DJ played love songs that filled the room with warmth. Couples danced, swaying to the rhythm of promises. Amira sat quietly, sipping her drink, watching the world move on without her. A man approached her table once, asked if she wanted to dance. She declined politely. He smiled and walked away. She watched him join another woman on the dance floor, their bodies moving in sync, their laughter effortless. She felt invisible. Later that night, she slipped away from the crowd and stepped outside. The air was cooler, quieter. She leaned against the wall of the hall, her arms wrapped around herself. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. She thought about her body, the one she had lived in for 23 years. The one that never seemed to draw attention, never seemed to invite desire. She thought about the consultations, the scans, the folder still sitting unopened on her desk. She had told herself she was waiting. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for courage. But maybe she was just afraid. Afraid that even after the transformation, she would still feel unseen. That beauty wouldn't be enough to fill the silence. She closed her eyes and let the tears fall. Back inside, the party continued. The bride and groom danced beneath a canopy of lights, surrounded by love. Amira watched from the doorway, her face unreadable. She didn't envy them. She didn't resent them. She just wanted to feel like she mattered. That night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her makeup was smudged, her dress crumpled on the floor. Her phone buzzed with photos from the wedding, captions filled with joy. She didn't open them. Instead, she reached for the folder. She opened it. The clinic sat tucked between a pharmacy and a bridal shop on a quiet street in Victoria Island. Its glass doors reflected the morning sun, and the gold lettering above them read, Illusion Aesthetics. Amira stood outside for a moment, her fingers curled around the strap of her bag, her heart thudding softly beneath her ribs. She had dressed carefully, high-waisted jeans, a fitted top, gold earrings, and a touch of gloss. Not to impress, but to feel composed. To feel like she belonged in a place where bodies were redesigned. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of lavender and antiseptic. The receptionist greeted her with a practiced smile and handed her a clipboard. Amira filled out the form slowly, her handwriting neat but hesitant. Name. Age. Medical history. Desired procedures. She paused at the last question, what do you hope to gain from this transformation? She wrote, confidence. Visibility. Wholeness. The receptionist took the form and gestured toward the waiting area. Amira sat down, her eyes scanning the room. The walls were painted in soft beige, adorned with framed photos of smiling women before and after. Each image told a story of change, of emergence. She wondered what their lives had been like before. Had they felt invisible too? A door opened, and a man in a white coat stepped out. He was tall, with a trimmed beard and kind eyes. Amira, he said. She stood, smoothing her top. Yes. Come in. The consultation room was minimalist, white walls, a desk, a computer, and a reclining chair. The doctor gestured for her to sit. So, he began, tell me what brings you here. Amira hesitated. I want to feel different. I want to be seen. He nodded slowly. That's more common than you think. He turned the monitor toward her, showing diagrams of procedures, fat transfer, hip contouring, breast enhancement. The images were clinical, but Amira's heart raced. It wasn't vanity. It was survival. A way to rewrite the story her body had been telling the world. You're a good candidate, he said. But you need to understand the risks. The healing. The emotional shifts. Amira nodded. I've thought about it for years. The doctor leaned back. Then let's begin with a scan. We'll map your body and talk about what's possible. In the scanning room, Amira stood in front of a 3D imaging device. The technician explained the process, then stepped behind the console. A soft hum filled the room as the machine captured her form from every angle. On the screen, her body appeared, digitized, stripped of clothing, emotionless. The technician rotated the image, highlighting areas for enhancement. We can add volume here, he said, pointing to her hips. Lift here, gesturing to her chest. Contour the waist. Amira watched in silence. It was surreal, seeing herself as a blueprint. A canvas. When the scan was complete, she dressed and returned to the consultation room. The doctor reviewed the results. We can achieve a natural look, he said. Nothing exaggerated. Just balance. She nodded. That's what I want. He handed her a folder. Inside is everything you need, costs, recovery timeline, pre-op instructions. Take your time. No pressure. Amira held the folder in her lap. It felt heavier than paper. It felt like possibility. Outside, the sun was higher now, casting sharp shadows on the pavement. Amira walked slowly, the sounds of Lagos swirling around her, horns, voices, footsteps. But inside, everything was quiet. She didn't feel transformed yet. But she felt something new, momentum. She passed a shop window and caught her reflection. For the first time in a long time, she didn't look away. The compliments came quickly. Wow, you look amazing. Girl, that glow-up is serious. Who's your surgeon? Asking for a friend. Amira smiled, nodded, thanked them. She had prepared for admiration, even rehearsed how she'd respond. But she hadn't prepared for the undertone, the glances that lingered too long, the whispers that followed her into rooms, the way people now spoke to her body before they spoke to her. At work, Colleagues who barely acknowledged her before now stopped by her desk with questions that had nothing to do with spreadsheets. On the street, men turned their heads, some bold enough to comment, others content to stare. Even her social media saw a spike: likes, follows, DMs filled with fire emojis and unsolicited messages. But admiration came with judgment. "She's changed," someone said at brunch, not knowing Amira was within earshot. "She's trying too hard," another added. "She used to be so humble." Amira stirred her drink slowly, the ice clinking against the glass. She didn't respond. She didn't know how to. The bullying was different now. It wasn't about invisibility, it was about hypervisibility. Her body had become a spectacle, a topic, a target. Online, strangers dissected her photos like autopsy reports. Definitely had work done. Her hips don't match her thighs. She's fishing for attention. Even friends weren't immune. One sent her a meme about Instagram bodies with a laughing emoji. Another joked that Amira had finally joined the body club. She laughed along, but the sound felt foreign in her throat. At night, she stood in front of the mirror. Her reflection was undeniably beautiful. Sculpted. Balanced. The kind of symmetry magazines praised and algorithms rewarded. But beneath the surface, something trembled. She ran her fingers along the curve of her waist, the swell of her hips. It was her body, but it wasn't. It was the version she had chosen, paid for, endured pain to achieve. And yet, the old wounds hadn't vanished. They had simply found new places to hide. She remembered the consultations, the scans, the folder labeled Illusion Aesthetics still sitting on her desk. She remembered the recovery, the swelling, the bruises, the silence. She remembered the first time she looked in the mirror post-surgery and felt something close to joy. But joy was fleeting. And now, she wondered if she had traded one kind of ache for another. One evening, she met up with Zainab for drinks. Zainab, radiant as ever, leaned in and said, "You look incredible, Amira. But are you happy?" The question landed like a stone in her chest. Amira paused, her fingers wrapped around the stem of her glass. She looked out at the city lights, then back at her friend. "I thought I would be," she said softly. "I thought changing my body would change everything." Zainab reached across the table, her hand warm against Amira's. "It's okay to want more," she said. "But it's also okay to ask if what you wanted was ever really yours." That night, Amira sat at her desk and opened the folder. Inside were the before photos, the surgical plan, the notes from her consultations. She read them slowly, tracing the journey she had taken. It wasn't regret she felt, it was reckoning. A need to understand what beauty had cost her, and what it had given. She didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she whispered to herself, "I'm still here." And that, for the first time in weeks, felt like enough.